Hari Om, everyone. Hari
Hari Om,
Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.
Audio is clear. Everyone can hear well.
Saryam.
So let's begin with prayer. Om. 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 Sahana bhavatu. Sahanau bhunaktu. Sah viryam karavavahai. तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् हरिः ओम्. So, Hari Om, everyone. Welcome back to our second session of Satsang. So last week we entered into text of Drśya Viveka. We saw an introduction to the text and we saw an introduction to the topic of manana. So we saw how this text of Drśya Viveka, studied through this method of mananam, is actually the best way to unearth the gems of knowledge from within it and from our lives, actually. We saw how this process of mananam requires viveka in terms of that intellectual discriminatory capacity of my mind, when utilized, means that viveka, when utilized while churning this knowledge, while doing mananam, that viveka will make that mananam more robust. Because that discriminatory capacity will allow me to reflect better. So viveka helps my mananam. And in turn, the conclusions which come off of that mananam will help strengthen my viveka, samarthya in life, my ability to differentiate in a situation, make the right decision, and live by that knowledge. Utilize viveka in this way becomes stronger and easier when I've done good reflection, good mananam on those types of situations in life already. So, strong viveka makes my mananam more robust. And robust conclusions of mananam strengthens my viveka samarthya in life. So, as Bhagavan Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, parasparam bhavayantaha. Mutually, they help each other. So, this is one of our main conclusions from last week's class. We also saw last week one video at the end of class. That video was meant to awaken in our mind certain realizations. See, an intelligent man living in this world. When I say an intelligent man, I don't mean a scholar. I mean, some of us may be scholars. Some of us may consider ourselves not quite scholars, but intelligent. All of us here have that capacity, intellectual capacity. The mere fact that we choose to sit in satsang on a Thursday evening instead of relaxing and watching television shows that that seeking is there. That idea that I want to live from a higher perspective, and I want to find out ways that I can do that. It means intellect has become Jagrat in us. Intelligent ones, like all of us here, once we begin to examine and notice the way the world itself functions, the way life unfolds, then quickly we're going to begin to realize that there must be something more to life than what we were trained from our childhood up that life should be. You grow up, you get a job, you have a good family, you accrue good possessions, you get good name, fame, and so on. There must be something more to life than just acquiring and enjoying, making relations and breaking relations. We begin to realize that this cannot only be the ultimate goal of human life, because all of the things that I accrue in this life, all of the titles, all of the family relations, by the end of this life, they break. And I can take none of those things across to my next lifetime. So the intelligent one examining and thinking is going to start to realize that right now I'm investing in a project that's going to give me absolutely no returns by the end. So we begin to examine and think, is this really the way life should be lived? I can't take any of this with me across to the next life. And so we begin to search, are there things that I can invest in now which can give me returns that I can even take into my next investment? And so we start to look for those things. In chapter 15 and chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about these. He talks about certain things that can be accrued in this life with respect to character, personality, knowledge, spiritual intelligence. Certain of these things can be stored in chitta and taken with the subtle body across into your next lifetime. When we start searching for these things, we start accruing and investing in a project that can give gains later on. The intelligent one begins to question and look for these things in life. But what happens when this happens is that a person who realizes that the mundane way that I've been living thus far does not make sense, it cannot be the ultimate goal, thereafter will not be able to blindly indulge in those same sense pleasures, that same accruing and achieving in the way that they did before. Means that they will realize these achievements and accruements, these all ultimately become futile. And so he begins to seek extra. But this is where we get stuck, because while we're no longer happy with just this much, we don't yet know the self. We don't know that higher thing to invest in yet, even though we've begun to get a glimpse of it. And what happens is now we have an idea of this one, we've been accustomed to this one, and we become pulled apart from inside in two different directions now. From within, this battle begins, meaning that your mind, our minds, will still pull us towards sense enjoyment. I want to live a good life. I want to be happy. I want to enjoy. But at the same time, in the middle of that situation, while I'm enjoying, intellect will begin to reject and pull away. From within, this battle is going to start. Then from externally, what will happen? Friends and relations will continue to try to draw us into their circle of expectations and affection. But yet, we will begin to shy away or revolt from those overtures. We'll be invited to parties, this birthday is coming up, this celebration, and we actually begin to think, should I go or not? Or should I find some satsang that I can attend instead? Even when we go, we don't enjoy the way that we used to. Now, we don't fit in as well there. And the others also notice he or she is not as much fun as they used to be before. They don't want to get into it and enjoy the way they used to. And then they even ask us questions like, how about we talk about something a little more intelligent than it? You try to change the mood because your mind is going on a different level now. So you're not happy with them in that environment like you used to be. They're not happy with the way you think either. And so little by little, we begin to draw away from these extrovert situations. How many of us does this sound like? You don't have to raise your hand, but I know this will happen to all of us. Anyone who will choose to do this on a Thursday evening has experienced this at some point. To the ones like this, in whom sadhana chaturshya has begun to awaken. Bhagavan Shankara calls this as the awakening of sadhana chaturshya. He says to these ones who that detachment has begun to come, it is time for you now to approach a guru and begin gaining this knowledge. If you've started thinking in this direction, then it's time for you. He talks about this kind of student is spoken about in Upanishads also. Mundaka Upanishad, first Mundaka, second chapter, describes that type of Shishya who has examined the world and has begun to see that worldly pleasures and worldly achievements come only through action and endeavor. And he begins to think and analyze. Mananam is happening in him. And he says, but actions come at a specific place, time, and circumstance. They give their result and then they're finished. And he says, if what I'm seeking is eternal happiness, then actions which only give a result at some point and then is over, that ephemeral cannot give me the eternal. And so he examines, does parikshanam. That mantra says, parikshalokan karmachitan brahmanaha. That brahmana, that one who's begun to think higher, does parikshanam. He examines and he realizes, nirvedamaya nasti akrita kritena. That akrita, that eternal, cannot be gotten through krita, through ephemeral actions. Nasti akrita kritena. And so Nirvedamaya, that sense of detachment, vairagya, begins to build in him. What should he do now? Upanishad guides, Tadvijnanartham sagurumeva bigachet. That with desire now for that eternal, that vijnanartham, I want to know that vijnana, that knowledge. So gurumeva bigachet. He approaches a guru, he approaches books, he approaches knowledge, and he tries to find out. But how does he approach? Samitpanihi Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Samitpanihi, with firewood in hand, with faggot sticks. And firewood has a very special significance. I'll explain this now. With firewood in hand, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam, he approaches that guru. What is the symbolism of this firewood? So beautiful. What is firewood? Firewood is normal sticks and branches which have been dried out, and they're so dry that they catch fire easily. That Shishya approaching with firewood in hand, that firewood is symbolic of the ego. That I'm coming and offering you my ahankara. Hey Guru, this world, the heat of this world has roasted my ego. Like that Shishya in Viveka Churamani who says, Durvara samsara davati taptam. The Durvara samsara, this world is so fearful, so awful. I don't want to be here anymore. Davagni taptam, I've been burnt in it. It's too much. Hey Guru, get me out. So he approaches as though with this ego itself. That ego represents the idea of body, my body, my mind, my relations, my achievements, my intellect, my brilliance. All of these things are sense of ego. And he approaches saying that all of these interactions I've had in the world through all of these mediums of my ego, the heat of this world has roasted that ego now. And it has become dried like these faggot sticks. And so ego has now turned into as though firewood. So Guru, I give you this firewood, this ego, and now you set it afire with that blazing fire of knowledge. With the fire of knowledge, you burn this ego out and make it disappear into nothingness. That's the symbolism of this firewood. If our ego has been poked and prodded and damaged by this world, has been dried out, dehydrated by this world, now is the time to bring it to the Guru so that he can set it ablaze with that fire of knowledge. That's the beauty of this mantra. When we go to the Guru now, what questions do we ask? So I remember Geeta Amma gave one example of one question that someone asked Guruji, and that was very funny about. So, who's taken something of mine? It's not the type of question you ask the Guru. Oh, Guruji, I'm coming to Sandipani, but are there any air-conditioned rooms available? This is not what you go and ask the Guru. What's the schedule like? 5:30 a.m. Vedic chanting every day, even Sunday? Are you sure? These are not the questions to ask the Guru, okay? The type of questions we ask the Guru beautifully we saw in Viveka Churamani. Konama bandha katame agata. What is bondage? How does it come about? Patam vimukta. How do I get rid of it? How do I get freed from it? One of the most beautiful questions is asked in Kena Upanishad. The way that Shishya asks that question, you see, is Medha. You see, he's begun to do mananam, and so he's approached the Guru now. That question from Kena Upanishad says, Yeneshitam patati preshitam manah केन प्राणः प्रथमः प्रैतियुक्तः केनेषितां वाचमिमां वदन्ति चक्षुश्रोत्रं क उदेवो युनक्ति. So केनेषितं patati preshitam manah. Manah, this mind, propelled by what? Falls on objects and is able to know them. Kena prana prathama praiti yukta. These pranas, these vital airs within me, what impels them to live on? Yeneshitam vacham imam vadanti. Inspired by what does this tongue speak words? And chakshutrotram. By what sentient principle do eyes and ears function? This is true inquiry. Only when we begin to think, then we begin to realize something else must be here and living this thing. A dead man has a body also. Why doesn't it do the same thing? All the parts are there. What's the extra thing that's here? When we begin to inquire, then questions like this come. Then all of this drishya, all of these sense organs, my pranas, all of these things, I begin to inquire, who is that drashta, that seer, that enlivening force behind these things? And only through good viveka, I begin to separate out and see these things. Good drishya viveka. So which brings us to the process of Viveka here. We're going to look more deeply in. So if we look at Viveka, we can divide it into the gross Viveka, subtle Viveka, and very subtle Viveka. Let's look at it in this way. So we're going to explore the levels of Viveka that can happen within us. But I'll need some assistance for this one. So let's see, who can we start with? So not everyone knows everyone here. So let's ask someone to introduce themselves and assist. Vikram uncle, would you like to assist us today? Hari Om, uncle.
Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.
Hari Om. So uncle, you just introduce yourself briefly and say one thing about yourself, and then I'll ask someone else so two people can help. So go ahead.
My name is Vikram Advani. I mean, in this lifetime. And I'm also a seeker of knowledge, Mumukshu, trying to learn and learn about myself. I live in St. Martin with my wife Anita and my daughter Shivani. And we started these classes about 6-7 years ago, and we are constantly meeting every Thursday. And it was so nice to have met you and learned so much from you. And thank you so much. Hari Om.
Hari Om, uncle. Very nice introduction. Okay, let's ask one more person to introduce themselves to help me with this. Anita Amma. Hari Om, Amma.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, how are you?
I'm good. Hari Om, everyone. Neeta Naik. I live in Atlanta. Involved with Chinmay Niketan, Chinmay Mission Atlanta. I have two kids. They're twins. High school. They're in Jyoti's class. I would call myself a novice in this journey, but I'm here to learn and start.
Beautiful. Excellent. So, Neeta Amma and Vikram uncle are going to help us study these different levels of Viveka. So we'll start with the grossest form of Viveka. When there are two things that are easily separable, say like rice and chana grains, easily you can separate them out, right? Because these are gross things that have distinct characteristics and they maintain a separate identity even when mixed. So, Neeta, how easy is it for you to separate out rice grains from chana grains?
Fairly easy.
Fairly easy, right? So it's simple. This is easy Viveka. This is called gross Viveka. Now there's a subtler level of Viveka in matters like the force of dharma, questions of dharma or duty in life. So Vikram, uncle, this is your question. You're outside of a mall or someplace. A child approaches you begging for money. Now, if someone has told you this child's father is a drug addict, then he sends her to beg for money for him. But the person who told you that, they're not a very trustworthy person either. So you're not sure if they were telling you the truth also. But you have a child in front of you begging for money, a child that looks pretty ghastly, like they need help. And you have to make a decision. Do I give this child money and possibly let it get into the hands of a drug dealer? Or do I not and not help a child that definitely does need help? You're in a rush. You can't make any other arrangement. You have to make a decision right then. What do? You get the harder question. This is subtler, Vivek.
Yes. Well, there are two things. First of all, my heart would say, help the child. The child looks very needy. I don't know if the child really has a mother or a father, and he or she could be a very needy child. And if I have the means, I would definitely help the child. But on hindsight, if you help somebody doing the wrong thing, meaning if you are doing good dharma and thinking that it's going towards doing good karma, but if those proceeds are applied incorrectly for drinking, gambling, or drugs, then part of that bad karma will come on me also. So these are a few things one has to be very careful about. But since I have not communicated with the child's parents, I've only seen the child, and if I have the disposable funds, I will most certainly help the child. But in hindsight, one has to be ready to accept the negative that might come out of this good deed.
Hmm. So you see uncle's process of thinking, very analytical, very good. But see the difficulty in making the decision. Because he said what he will do, but that hindsight is also there. Means look at the time it took uncle to come to that decision as opposed to the time it took Nita Ahmad to just say, fairly easy, done. So you see, as that Viveka becomes subtler, as the situation becomes subtler, a lot more Viveka is required. What to talk of? So there, rice and chana, easily separable. Case of dharma, right and wrong, much more difficult to separate out, to apply Viveka. What about when the two, but still you can tell there's a right and wrong, there's two. What about when two are experienced as one? How much Viveka will be required to separate that out when we are not even aware many times of the separate existence of two within that one? This is where we come back to Nita Amma. Nita Amma, had it not been for Vedanta, say there was no religion in the world, you had to figure out your own spirituality on your own. Do you think within this lifetime you would have been able to discover that there is another entity within here, something higher that I have to connect to, and you would have been able to, with conviction, pursue that had you not had gurus in your life?
Absolutely not, because growing up, all you know is the physical, everything physical around, and that would be my world. If there is no guidance, nothing, and life will go and end one day, and that's it.
Hmm. So see, the subtlest Viveka will require that influence of a spiritual guide,
Yes.
of text, of gurus who have seen that truth. And that's why Bhagavan and his infinite mercy have given us all of this. This is why this process of study is recommended through entire Guru Shikshya Parampara, through all Sampradayas. Because eventually, through lifetimes, we may come to realize Atma. But the lifetimes it will take, these things fast track us. The conclusions are already gotten. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can get there so much faster. That's the beauty of studying texts like this, because things that we would not have even been able to fathom on our own, now we can learn that process of Viveka beautifully. But see how much more difficult this type of Viveka is. The first one Nita Amma did, yes, fairly easy, right, Sanchana? Vikram uncle took some time to explain more difficult, subtler Viveka, but still he could make a decision. This final type of Viveka, of separating BMI, body, mind, and intellect from Atma. This one, the conclusion, we didn't even get a conclusion. Nita Amma said, not in this lifetime even. So that's not 1 second or 2 minutes for Uncle Vikram uncle. This is a lifetime, and still maybe no answer can come. See the subtlety of this type of Viveka. Much more time required to come to that realization. This is why inquiry, study becomes essential. And the reason why I made you all introduce yourself was also to prove this final point of Viveka. See, when Vikram uncle and Nita Amma introduced themselves, how did they introduce? Name first. See, our identity, two mixed up as one so strongly we can't tell. My identity is Atma. We know that from Shravanam already. Yet no one introduced themselves as Atma. But we have begun to think, because Vikram uncle did say in this lifetime, this is my identity. So some manana is happening there. Nice to see. But look at the first thing, my name comes out. That's body identity. Previous lifetime, I had a different body and a different name. Same name wasn't there. So implies that name is attached only to this body. So body identification is our strongest attachment first. Then they each spoke about their intellect, their involvement in the study, and so on. Children. So mind is the seat of emotions. Those emotional attachment, children, intellectual attachment, their study. Body, mind, intellect. We may say that we're Atma, we may know through Shravanam, but do we feel it? When we have to introduce ourselves, when we sit by ourselves, the fear, Atma, and the seen, body, mind, and intellect, seem to have become one in this body, and we cannot distinguish them out. The fear is not known since the seen is taken for the fear. And this is why inquiry is essential. This is why this process, the study of Drśya Viveka, utilizing the technique of mananam, is actually the best step in our spiritual journey at this point. We have all identified with this body, this mind and intellect. We suffer all of the sorrows of the body, and then we attempt to alleviate those sufferings by providing joys at the level of the body. This will serve as a temporary distraction at best. Until I learn to discriminate out that body and mind out from my true identity, then until then, I will remain latched on to that body and all of its sorrows. So the process of discriminating out those two out of this one that I think I am, this is a process that is beset with challenges. Why? Because mind is not going to let you do it. So we're going to speak for a few minutes as to why this mind keeps doing this to us. We do so much Shravanam. We know we're Brahman. The minute that Shreyas or Prayas approaches in front of us, we say, Shreyas is the best. We should. And then we all go Prayas. It happens. Why does the mind keep tricking us back like this? So there's a very deep reason why. The reason that's actually, source of it is from Mandukya Karikas. I'm going to share now. I'm going to share screen. And there is a quotation that I read recently, not from our Sampradaya. Someone else was speaking, one sadhu, but very intelligently how they put this. So I'm going to project this. I'm going to ask someone. So I'll read it first time. I'll read it and then I'll ask someone to tell me what they understand from it. Then we'll discuss the topic and someone else will re-explain after. Okay? So I'm going to read it and I will ask Anuradha. Hello, Manu Amma. So Amma, I'm going to project it now. And as I'm reading it, you get an idea of what it means. And after you can explain to us. Okay? Let me share. Manu Amma, can you see clearly?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it says, knowledge makes you learned. Wisdom makes you innocent. Knowledge is very ego fulfilling, very ego strengthening. The ego feeds on knowledge. It is the best tonic for the growth of this ego. But wisdom happens only when ego has disappeared. Wisdom appears only on the death of the ego. The death of the ego is the birth of wisdom. Mind is interested in knowledge, not wisdom, because for wisdom, you will have to create a space called no mind. And naturally, mind is afraid of your ever becoming interested in wisdom because mind does not want to commit suicide. Sannyasa is a suicide of the mind. So is meditation, as is wisdom. These are different names for the same phenomenon, different aspects of the same diamond. So, Amma, should I can I stop share screen now? Or would you like to reflect on it while you're speaking?
Okay.
So tell us what you understand.
Okay. So going by what we just discussed, body, mind, and intellect, right? So knowledge is 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 gained by your mind and intellect, right? And and in the initial beginning stages of your spiritual growth, you need to have that intellect and your mind functioning to gain that knowledge. And then you talked about mananam, right? And to make that knowledge yours, when you do a lot of mananam, and when you start doing mananam, that's when the wisdom starts stepping in. So your reaction time to anything, there's a lag time, right? Before initially, when you're only working on your mind and intellect, your reaction time is very, very fast. And when the wisdom steps in, and then you're able to pull yourself back a little bit behind and then look at it at a different perspective. And that's what, when you're doing a lot of mananam, that wisdom slowly comes in. And when you start doing your nididasana, when you're doing your meditations and everything, and you're able to quieten the mind,
Oh, I think Amma is frozen.
which is always raising up the answers to all that. So you can quench your mind and say, you know what, this is what the question you're putting up is not the right question, because I know this is the answer for it. So you have the answers within you, and that's when you have that gratitude in your life and your in your nididasana. And after that, I cannot say what is the next step because it's a process.
Okay,
It's a
good
process.
process of thinking so far.
Yeah.
But I'll ask you one pointed question. You
Mhm.
can give one or two line answers. Why is it that the mind fights against this process?
It's because of all your vasanas that you have developed over the lifetimes, right? So to overcome all that it takes good effort on your part, and that's the reason why the mind keeps coming up again and again, because all those things that has been built up in you, that makes you in this lifetime, right? All that has to be all that the wisdom has to rise up and quelch all that, and that's what mind is doing here.
Okay, good. So that's good. That's one aspect of it. There's another aspect I want to bring out. I see Mansi Amma is raising her hand. Yes, Amma, please share.
Hari Om Jyoti ji.
Hari Om, Amma.
I've thought this quite a bit actually. This question used to bother me. This is how I think about it. That the mind is basically made up of thoughts, and thoughts love knowledge. The thoughts love knowledge because that kind of keeps them busy learning new things, reading new things. That's how thoughts mind loves thoughts. But the aim is to be in a place of no thought. The aim is to be in a place of connecting to your atma, to your seeker. So that's why the mind doesn't like the thoughts. Sorry, the mind doesn't like wisdom to rise, because wisdom, the minute the wisdom comes, it's like it's like committing suicide. This knowledge that we have gained is going to diminish the mind itself, and that's why and
Ah,
that's why mind doesn't like wisdom.
Beautiful. Good. So that was the second angle I was looking for. Excellent. So together they got it. So as Manasi Amma said there, that aspect of no mind. Mind doesn't like destroying itself. And that's what comes when that wisdom begins to dawn. Because what does it do? As Anuradha Amma mentioned, it begins to do kriya of those vasanas. Those vasanas that are causing that mind to keep acting up. When wisdom comes, it quietens those down. Mind can begin to disappear. Mind doesn't like that idea. So I'm going to explain it in a different way now, a similar way, but a little more systematically now, for us to see how this process happens, how this challenge of mananam happens, because mind won't let us. So what happens is that we find that when we begin this process, the mind itself does not want to undergo the discipline of discrimination, discriminatory, intelligent, logical thinking, nor does it even show the overt capacity to do that initially. When you start doing mananam, you start asking why. So we'll have some scenarios later on. Well, I'll actually bring a question and I'll ask you why. Why do you think that is? Okay, if it's because of that, then why has that come? Okay, if that has come because of this, then why has this come? You try doing this to yourself sometimes. Your mind will get so fed up. It won't want to keep thinking in sequence. Mind doesn't want that overt capacity to consistent logical thinking. Mind revolts against that. And this is because, as Anuradha Amma mentioned, for so many lifetimes, we have allowed it its willful way to indulge in all gross pleasures, all gross identifications. We've made those vasanas so strong. We can't blame the mind for acting in this manner now. It has not known the subtler joys and it keeps going back to that vasana pressure. When the mind has been made to inquire, to begin to turn inward, it begins to realize that there's a possibility that there's a real I behind that mind, that there's something higher than it itself, a higher I, and that the mind itself may be now facing its own annihilation because there's another I in here that's not me, and it's stronger and it's more intelligent. Mind fears its own death, and in this way it protests. How does it protest? This devious mind will find so many ways to prevent you from first doing Shravanam, and if you get through with Shravanam, then from doing Mananam. Means initially it will not allow you to even attend a discourse on Vedanta. It will come up with extremely convincing reasons. It will even use dharma against you. And I remember this happening to me. It will give you reasons like you have a job, you have certain things to do, you need to rest properly. How will you be driving, going out late satsang, coming back home, then you have to work the next day? No, you won't be good at your job. That's your dharma. It will make up all these excuses. For grihastas, worse yet, so many responsibilities are there for you, which is within dharma. I have to take care of the kids. I have to take them to see these things. They have to do these activities, whatever. I just don't have the time for satsang. What can I do? I have to take care of my kids. It will find very convincing reasons. Yet you will still find 1 hour to sit and watch television and then eat food, which means you could have spent that hour in satsang. But mind will convince you it's okay to sit and watch TV, but not okay to go to satsang. Convincingly, it won't even let you do shravanam. If by chance it allows you to attend the satsang, so you become a little more strong. Viveka is coming now. I'm going to that satsang no matter what. Then when you get there, mind will put you to sleep. When that discourse starts, Om Sahana Vavatu, boom, off. Then you wake up at Purnamada, gone, everything. Should you happen to be able to reach there and stay awake during the satsang, what happens? Mind distracts you in every different direction. You get there a little bit late, so you have to sit at the back and you watch the back of everyone's head and imagine what's happening to them in front. Mind distracts you from every twist and turn. The minute mind feels a little quiet in that night satsang atmosphere, it starts going off in every direction. By the time Purnamada happens, you don't recall anything from the satsang. Means first mind attacks you with tamas, fall asleep. When tamas doesn't work, rajas it brings, vikrepa, distractions everywhere. Did you happen to survive that tamas and rajas and you actually sit there, you internalize, you hear that satsang? In Shravanam is happening, no mananam comes, no understanding. You understand a bit, you can't link it through, and then mind gets distracted again. It doesn't allow you to use your sattva at that point. You reach there, stay awake, not get distracted. Listen, understand, internalize. This thing makes sense. But the mind will tell you, but it's not that practical at this point in my life. Maybe later on. But for now, I have different responses. It sounds nice and I'll store it. This I'll use later on. And mind convinces you, you've done well. So don't worry, you can keep doing satsangs in this way. Store that knowledge. Later we'll use this. And mind has won again. Because later it's gone. And mind knows it will take care of making that knowledge disappear over time. This is how this mind tricks us. This is how Maya plays its role and distracts us. We cannot yield to her trick. This process of manana, of reflecting and churning, mind will fight against it from every direction because it knows by this process it will lose its control over you. And this is the reason why realization is the rarest of achievements. There are so many achievements in this world, even rare ones. Very rarely you'll find someone who's a triple PhD neuroscientist or something, but still, you manage to find 2 or 3 in the world. Realization, how many realized masters were there? Generations may go before one becomes realized. Bhagavan spoke about this in Bhagavad Gita. Ashtarya, how rare it is for this thing to happen. And that's because in this battle, all the other battles that you survive in life, gaining your degrees, getting through life, your mind and intellect helps you through. On the strength of your intellect, you gain all of these things. And so ego, intellect, mind is your friend through that. In this battle, you're fighting yourself. In this battle, it requires you to negate that self that you thought you were your whole life. And so this battle is only for the absolute strongest. And that's why realization is so rare compared to all other achievements in life, because this one is an internal battle. And we don't know how to face ourselves, using ourselves. But many battles will have to be fought before the war is won. So this we have to remember. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. We have to keep at that because unless we even enter that battlefield, there's no talk of possible victory. So we have to be willing to enter and face these things. So are you ready to enter our battlefield? First battle, you have to say yes. You're all on mute. You can shout if you want to. No one will hear. You have to be enthusiastic. Yes, we're ready to enter our battlefield. So battle number 1, shloka number 1. So for those who have the text, it's on page 1. It's about 10 pages in actually. There's a big introduction. So page 1, first shloka. So I'll chant the shloka in quarters, as is customary. Usually everyone is sitting there and they repeat, but because it's Zoom, we can't do the repeat. It will be all muffled. So I'll chant it twice. So the first time you listen and the second time, everyone chant along with me. Okay? On mute. Rupam drishyam lochanam drika. Rupam drishyam lochanam drika. Tadrishyam driktumanasam. Tadrishyam driktumanasam. Drishyadhivrittaya sakshi. Drishyadhivrittaya sakshi. Drige vanatu drishyate. Drige vanatu drishyate. Rupam drishyam lochanam drika. Tadrishyam driktumanasam. Drishyadhivrittaya sakshi. Drige vanatu drishyate. This shloka is giving us all of the distinctions of drik and drishya. The here and the seen that exists within us right here when we observe the world. Now, how are we going to understand this? I won't translate the shloka yet. First, we'll go into examples to prove what's given in this shloka. Oh, I hope we don't run out of time. Okay. So we'll need another volunteer for this part. Okay, so we'll start with Anita Amma. So we can start with you. Hari Om Amma. Amma, you didn't speak in last class, right?
No.
Okay, good. So I'm trying to not keep calling on the same people. Okay, So Amma, your question is talking about Drśya Padartha, all seen things. What's this?
Pencil.
Okay, it's a pencil. Very good. How do you know that it's a pencil? Like, describe for me. What makes you know for sure that this is a pencil?
Past experience that I've used it before, so I know it's a pencil.
But you haven't used this pencil before.
Not
So
this pencil, but
look
similar.
at this and tell me what convinces you that this must be a pencil. So describe for me.
The form, that's the shape, and the
Good.
lead at the end of the nib, the rubber, the eraser at the other end,
Mhm.
and the wood pencil, that it's made of wood. I mean, I can see the wood, little bit shavings of the wood,
Mhm.
and that's what convinces me it's a pencil.
Good, excellent. So what Amma has described is there in shloka number 2. So we're going to chant shloka number 2 also to bring these two ideas together. So shloka number 2 says, Nilapita sthula sukshma, Nilapita sthula sukshma, Rasvadirgadi bhedataha, Rasvadirgadi bhedataha, Nana vidhani rupani, Nana vidhani rupani, Pasher lochanamekada, Pasher lochanamekada. नीलपीठस्थूलसूक्ष्म ह्रस्वदीर्घादिभेदतः नानाविधानि रूपाणि पश्येर्लोचनमेकधा. The second shloka talks about what Amma just described. Color, form, nila, pita, blue, yellow, sthula, sukshma, gross, subtle, hrasva, dirgha, short, long. So all physical characteristics, right? Like we saw of the pencil. Nana vidhani rupani, all these multiple forms and shapes. This is how the eye sees. Locha, the eyes. Lochanam is the eyes. This is how the eye sees and knows. Pashit lochana mekada, that same one eye remaining the same, sees all of these things and knows in this manner. So how Amma described this pencil, we see that the first way of knowing this pencil is through the eyes. Now, if eyes are the one that knew, then the first question is there any other way that I can know that it's a pencil without using my eye? Is there any other sense organ that I can utilize other than the eyes to know that this is the Simama?
By
Yeah,
touch.
go ahead.
By this, there's a specific smell of a particular pencil. If you've used it enough, you know the smell.
So I knew someone would make up so I smell or the by the feel of it, I know it's a pencil. So that's why I defined this question. Beyond a doubt, can you know that it's a pencil by utilizing, not in tandem, just that one sense organ? Means if you smell that wood smell, it could be a piece of wood. So sense of smell alone can't work. If you use your hands even, sometimes if you go into some of those stationery stores where they advertise pencils, it's a plastic pencil and it feels like a pencil, but only when you write with it, then you realize, oh, it's plastic, it's not writing. So even your sense of touch can betray you. Only through your sense of eyes means that there's only one pramana, one means of knowing everything. Each thing is different. Like with my eyes, I can see these features, but it can look like a real pencil, but it's a plastic pencil used for advertising. Only when I write with it and I see those words, I know for sure that graphite coming out, it's a pencil. Because I can't feel that page and know it's a pencil. I can't smell it and know for sure it's a pencil and not a piece of wood. But sight is the one thing, which means we're confirming that eyes are the means of knowing this pencil. So eyes are my knower in this scenario. Yes, agreed? Champama is shaking her head. Okay. So eyes are the knower. So this is the drik, the first level of drik, knower for that drishya of pencil. Next step. If eyes are what sees and knows this pencil, then how come a blind man cannot see this pencil? A blind man has eyes. But yet there can be defects. Why even with eyes, a pencil cannot be seen. So we're gonna ask one of our doctors. I saw Mano Amma here somewhere. Where's Mano Amma? Are you Amma? Yes, Amma is there. So Amma, you just briefly, not elaborately, okay? Something brief, tell us about the optic nerve and why is it that you can have an eye, but you may not be able to see a pencil? Amma, you're on mute.
Okay. The image is not going inside on the optic nerve and they're not perceiving it. And the mind is not perceiving it.
Okay, good. So that much. Simple. We leave it at simple medicine. So that much. If there's damage to the optic nerve, then even though there are eyes which can see the pencil, no image is created in the brain, and therefore I do not know. So then there's a second level of knower. Eyes alone don't only determine knowing. There's another level behind that. Correct. Now, we'll say that the level behind that is, well, the brain, right? But within that brain, now explain to us how is there must be other doctors among him. Manu, Amma is the first one I saw. Amma, do you see anyone else from our Viveka Churamani class? There were quite a few doctors there. Who is a doctor? Come, unmute yourself. You have to answer the next question. Amma, you see anyone? Otherwise, you're answering this question again. Rachna, Amma. Amma, you can answer the next question. Okay, good. Amma, explain how hallucinations happen. And the reason for this, why I'm asking, is because someone who is hallucinating can have perfect eyes, an optic nerve functioning fine. It can even create an image in your brain, but yet they don't see what's actually there because a hallucination is coming. So tell us what's happening there.
So in your mind, you can have there's different areas within the brain where you'll perceive different things. So one is what's actually inputted from what you see. And then the other is where your memories are going to store it in your brain and how your memories are going to interpret it in your brain. So they might see something because of a previous thought or memory that was stored somewhere else and then kind of came out in the wrong input, essentially, or the wrong output.
Good, very nice. So seeing and knowing Drśya Padartha does not only depend on having good eyes or proper neural networks, it goes even to the level of the brain, where if there's a defect in the brain and you're drawing images from the wrong places, you're not even going to be able to see what's there correctly. So there's another level of seer, now at the level of the brain, which is going to determine how things are seen and if they are seen correctly, properly. So we're moving backward now, backward, more and more inside to figure out. Now, next step. You can have a good brain. You can have good neural network eyes. Object is there, but yet you can still not see. What happens in someone who's dead? If I die right now, I can tell you, my eyes are perfect. I have 20/20, actually I have 30/20 vision. I have even better vision than normal. Optic nerve is fine. My brain is perfectly in function, no hallucinations. But yet, if I'm dead, I don't see anything. So sight is not only dependent on eyes, neural networks, brain. Something else is not there. What's that something else? Who wants to volunteer to answer this question? Shastriji, what's that something else that's not there? This is a trick question, by the way.
The main function of the pencil is right, so you could see it writing and you could have proper like that pencil.
Hariom, somebody should go on mute, I guess.
Hariom, everyone. I think we have two Shastrijis in this group.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Okay, no, actually, I was looking for this Shastri uncle who unmuted, but there's another Shastriji here. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the Oscar moment where the wrong Kathy Bates stood up.
Shastriji, you're gonna get the next question then. Let's let this person answer. I'm not sure who this is. Hariom ji, your name is user Shastri.
Yeah.
So, Hariom.
Hariom.
So yeah, you go ahead and answer. We'll let our Shastriji from Atlanta answer the next one. So yeah, go ahead, tell us. Where's that other level of seer?
Come back to the question.
So yeah, so I'm asking now, why is it that in a dead person, even though all of these faculties are there, that they don't see?
Yeah, well, that person, they can't correlate, they no longer have a soul. So once the soul working, the intellect could be non-functional.
Good. So good answer. Thank you very much. So here brings up, and he answered that perfectly because I wanted that word soul to be used. I was hoping. That's why I told our Shastriji from Atlanta, it's such a question, because that word soul I was looking for. So we have to define soul. What do we mean by soul? Akila Amma, what's the soul? Amma, you're muted. Huh.
Your question is, what is the soul?
Yes.
Soul is the Atma inside each and every one of us, that conscious.
Good, beautiful. I wanted someone to say that. Sima Amma, what's the soul?
The soul is your subtle and sukshma sharira, the basically your inner, the bundle that you take from life to life. What
Perfect.
is the soul.
Perfect. So you see the distinction. You all are just answering so perfectly. Everything is coming together nicely. See the distinction between those two answers. Sima Amma answered soul is subtle body. Akhila Amma said soul is Atma. These are two distinct things. Your subtle body, the components including your subtle senses, your subtle abilities to invoke your senses, your subtle pranas, your vital force, as well as your mind and intellect, your ego sense. That's your subtle body. Atma is absolutely pure. Atma has no mind, intellect, nothing. Atma is devoid of even subtle body. So we have this word soul, and all of us at some point would have understood it in two different ways. Is soul the subtle body or is soul the Atma? And this is why we should always use Sanskrit. Forget English. English is so flawed. There's not enough words for everything because soul is used for both of these. And that brings a lack of clarity when we're trying to figure our way through this. Because if everyone says identifies the soul, and I think soul is that subtle body that travels from one lifetime to the next, then I'm happy traveling from one lifetime to the next and I get stuck in transmigration because I'm the soul. But if I understand soul as Atma, then my identification with Atma frees me from transmigration. So see how terms need to be distinct. So this is why I will try not to use terms like soul when we discuss. I'll stick to the Sanskrit. So the next level of seer here is the subtle body that we're talking about, that mind-intellect complex. And this is the distinction I wanted to create. Brain is different from mind. Next level of vichara that we have to do. Because when I ask, what's your brain? You say your mind. You know, your mind does this. Someone just now said that. I'm trying to remember who. We were supposed to be talking about brain and they said mind immediately. There's a distinction. Brain is hardware. Mind is software. You can have physical eyes, good neural network, and a brain. Hardware is there, but if you're dead, there's no software. Your mind is gone, even though your brain is there, because mind intellect is in subtle body. It's been transferred out, ejected at that point of death. So that's your third level of seer that we're seeing now. The eyes saw the object. The brain came to know what the eyes were seeing in order to know the object. But brain can't function unless mind, subtle body, is enlivening it. For that, brain to have electricity flowing through it in order for it to perceive what the eyes are looking at. So drshya is object. Drik, the first seer is the eye. Second seer, the brain. Third seer, the mind, enlivening it. Fourth seer beyond that. This is where Atma comes in. See how many levels of seers, how many levels of drik are there. And until we reach that final level of drik, Atma, the ultimate seer, Sakshi, every other seer before that, every other drik before that becomes drshya. Because that ultimate seer is the one that sees the mind. Level 1, drshya. While that mind enlivens the brain, level 2, drshya. While that brain perceives what the eyes are taking in, level 3, drshya. And what are the eyes taking in? This pencil, level 4, drshya. See how many levels we have to separate out before we can come to understand our true nature. Where do we draw that line? Who I am inside. So to conclude, I'm just going to share one slide of a PowerPoint, which we'll go into next week, but it's to show exactly what we were talking about here. Can everyone see the screen in full screen mode? Yes? So what's happening is we have the rest of the external world outside. Most times we can easily, most of us, separate out our identity from those external things. Whatever's happening in the world has nothing to do with me, no problem. When it comes to my world, my possessions, house, car, job, family, my relations, becomes a little bit harder to separate that out from me. But most of us, or all of us, can draw that line of my identity at this fourth level. I can detach. Everything that's happening in the world outside is happening there. That's not me. And most of us say, yes, we have detachment because we can detach from the rest of the world. But detachment actually happens after that. Can I detach from my house, my job, my relations? So some of us are able to withdraw and cut at this point. And I can understand that possessions or relations are not me. They are mine, but they're not me. Those who have reflected strongly will be able to draw the line here at the third level. That my body, my brain, my sense organs, these things are not me. This is much more difficult. True sadhakas are at this point trying to detach. If something happens to this body, it's not happening to me. Someone insults this body or this brain, they're not insulting me. This requires true sadhana to not identify as this I, this drik. Because this drik is actually your third level of drśya. Make that distinction. But what we really have to do, where mukti lies, is in drawing the line here. This is where our ultimate aim has to be. This is where I have to start drawing the line of I. I've drawn the line all the way down somewhere else. My body is I. My mind is I. My relations are part of me. Only this level is going to give me mukti. This is the level of Drśya Viveka I need to do and separate all of these other levels out from myself. This is true Drśya Viveka. So this much I wanted us to cover for today. There's more on that slide we'll go into next week. But I hope this process, you can see the process of thinking. It may have been a bit simple. We were just talking about a pencil. But if we can begin to apply this to all those other things we saw on that slide, possession, family, relations, then my own body, fifth kosha, fourth, third kosha, we have to go backward in that way. So we can drop this mind, so we can reach that quote that we saw about no mind. Just by doing Drśya Viveka on a pencil and teaching myself that process of separating things out, when I begin to apply it to life, I'm going to eventually be able to separate out these koshas. So we'll go more into this next week. I hope you all enjoyed. And we'll meet again. Oh. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om Raghuji.
This
Thank
is
you.
there was a question that do we have a class on Saturday and Sunday? Seema, we do have classes, right? Sunday?
Yes. Yes, it's regular weekend.
Right. So we have classes Saturday and Sunday. The Jyotiji's class on the Hanumanji will be there on Saturday. And also, just want to mention on February 1st to 6th, Swami Prakashanandaji will be taking a Gnana Yagna on Narada Bhakti Sutras. Please mark your calendars and please take advantage of listening to our favorite Swamiji. Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Raghuji. Hari Om. And that week also we will be joining for Swamiji Satsang. So our Thursday evening Satsang is going to be Swamiji Satsang. So make sure we join, okay? Hari Om, it's a blessing to have Swamiji with us. So mark your dates, 1st to 6th of February, 7 to 8:30 p.m. EST. That'll be 8 to 9:30 Caribbean time. Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Happy to see some PRC friends.
Hari Om.
This is
Hari
Nanak.
Om.
Oh, Hari Om, Nanak Uncle. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
I see some PRC students with me.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Hari Om, Nanak ji, Hari Om. So good to see you. I was thinking about you. You look so different. Look at you. So good to see you. Hari Om.
You can't recognize Nanakji.
I know. He's our favorite Piercy person.
See, wonderful satsang. Meeting of souls, nice souls all together. Hari Om, everyone. Hari Om.